Greetings and welcome to the Dakota County Star Podcast, the weekly podcast of the Dakota County Star newspaper published in South Sioux City, Nebraska. I'm Mike Carnes, publisher of the Dakota County Star and your host for our weekly podcast where we talk about what's going on in South Sioux City and the rest of Dakota County, highlight what is in this week's edition of the Dakota County Star, and discuss whatever other issues happen to be bouncing around inside that space between my ears. The Dakota County Star Podcast is sponsored by Maricela Morales, your Aflac Bilingual Benefits Advisor, located in Dakota Dunes, South Dakota. Give her a call at 712-259-6580. And now, time to launch the rockets and blast off with another edition of the Dakota County Star Podcast.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And welcome to another edition of the Dakota County Star Podcast here on DACOStar.com. I'm Mike Carnes, your host for all that is Dakota County. And this week on the podcast, we have the state senator representing Dakota County, as well as Thurston and Wayne counties as well, District 17 in the Nebraska Legislature. Glenn Meyer from Pender is with us on the program. And is it Senator or Glenn or Mr. Meyer?
You can call me Glenn. Don't forget, I represent the southern part of Dixon County also. And southern part. Absolutely do not want to.
Don't want to leave them out.
Don't want to leave Dixon County out at all.
Exactly. Well, welcome to the office and welcome to the program. And we've gotten through that first year of the legislature. It was actually about a month ago that things wound down there for this legislative term. And was it kind of a trial by fire for you since it was your first year on the legislature? You were elected last November. What was it like for you that first year?
First off, I'd like to thank you for the invitation to come and be on your podcast. It's an opportunity, to reach out and speak to folks in the district, and so I appreciate that very much. It was about what I anticipated it being, just perhaps more of it. It's an interesting process, and there were 16 freshman senators. We were sworn in on the 8th of January and kind of hit the ground running. I was very fortunate to be on both the Education and the Health and Human Services committees, and I have a great deal of interest in those areas. And so out of the 14 standing committees, the Executive Committee essentially assigns committee assignments based on interest and perhaps past experiences. And so these were a couple of the committees that I would very much like to have served on, and I was very fortunate to get those committees. So very interesting first year in the legislature.
and I think that first year, it seems like to me from what I've talking to other state senators or other people who have served in that capacity in the past, it seems like it really takes you that full first term to really kind of get a feel for everything that goes on, because there's so many moving parts within a legislative setting, especially in ours, since we're a unicameral. We're the only unicameral in the country. There's just a lot you have to get used to and understand and learn who's who and what's what. It's really a like I said, trial by fire that first year.
That's very true. It's hard to anticipate the time that's required between going on the floor in the mornings, the afternoons. Initially, our committee hearings and Health and Human Services. We had 92 bills that we heard in our committee hearings this year. Someone said that was a record. It was a record for me because it was my first year, so my record right now is 92 bills. And education, I think we were in the 80s with the number of bills that were presented before the committee. And so it takes a great deal of time. Some of the committees spend a great deal more time. Sometimes on some of the more controversial bills, they're there till 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night. We did hit 9 o'clock a couple times, starting 1:30 in the afternoon, and so it makes for a pretty full day with your morning commitments. But there's a lot more to it. I think the one of the most difficult things initially as a freshman senator is just getting a basic understanding of the rules of the legislature, how the interaction is on the floor. it's very important to know the process and the opportunities that you may have to amend, whether it's a floor amendment, the presenting amendments, and then just the process and the procedures that go into Robert's Rules of Order and another set of rules that they try to follow. So probably understanding the rules is one of the most difficult things, getting an understanding of the rules. So.
Yeah. Now, does it help to have prior experience? Because I think you were a county commissioner before then.
I was a county supervisor, yes, and I've served on a number of boards prior. So yes, it certainly helps. I was 9 years on the school board, so having that background of being able to deal with boards and presentations and things of that nature, that's very helpful. We don't always follow Robert's Rules of Order at the county level. It was Thurston County, but we do have a process, so yeah, you understand the basics of it, and it helps a great deal.
Yeah.
It does help.
Yeah. Talking with Glenn Meyer, the state senator from Dakota County, or representing Dakota County here on the Dakota County Star podcast, and I know that. You said 92 bills in Health and Human Services? I believe
it was 92 in Health and Human Services and 80, the middle 80s, I think, in the Education Committee.
Yeah. How many of those are... It seems that sometimes some bills get put in just for... They don't seem to make a lot of sense. That do you
I think that's a very kind assessment of some of the bills. The opportunity to put bills in has been reduced from... in some cases, previous senators had introduced up to 40 bills in one legislative session. It was limited to 20. And so going forward this last year and then going forward in the sessions, it'll be about 20 bills. You can kind of skirt that a little bit. You can have a bill that asks someone that doesn't have as many bills to maybe make that a priority bill for them. And so indirectly you can get some additional bills introduced. But we had 715 bills introduced in this last session, and some were in 25, 30 constitutional amendments that were also introduced. And so that's a pretty full slate. It was a 90-day session this last year. It was the odd year, and so in the odd years, there's a 90-day session going into 2026. We'll start in January, I believe January 7th next year, I believe. It'll be a 60-day session, 60-day working session. So we'll hit the ground running a little harder. We'll be addressing bills on the floor of the legislature, carryover bills initially from the first year of the biennium, and so it'll be a much steadier workload, I think, on the floor of the legislature this year. But 715 bills. Not everyone is an earth-shaking, let's change the philosophy of the world bill. Many are cleanup languages on previous bills where we've discovered that something needs to be clarified, something needs to be redirected a little bit. So once again, those bills are relatively easy to hear the bill, vote it out of committee, and get it on the floor, and it's not a difficult bill to pass. It's not a difficult change to make on previous legislation. But then there are those controversial bills that require a great deal of time, and obviously we had some of those this session also.
Now, when a bill goes through committee, if it passes committee, it goes to the full legislature for consideration. Right?
Yes, it does.
Now, if a bill doesn't get out of committee, how does a bill not get out of committee? I guess obviously, if it fails to get out of committee, then or if it's voted down, then that's one thing. But
based on the nature of the bill, the topic of the bill, it's assigned to a particular committee, whether it's education, health and human services, governmental, those types of things, agriculture, and so we hear the bills, and very early in the session, bills we've already heard. The committee chairs generally make a decision on which bills we will exec on, and so we will have a private executive session. The public is not allowed in the executive session, however the press is, and so all that's reported that goes on goes on in the executive session. And so we discuss the bill, the merits of the bill, and then we take a vote whether it should be advanced out of committee. It takes a majority vote to get out of committee and go to the floor of the legislature, and then the the sponsor of the bill, the introducer of the bill, will introduce it on the floor of the legislature, and that's on the general file. And generally, we have 8 hours of debate on a general, 4 hours on select, and 2 hours on final. The speaker actually has the leeway in order, perhaps on a more controversial bill where the vote's probably pretty much etched in stone already, to modify that to a 4, 2, and 1, which will save some time, certainly on the floor of the legislature. And so we'll proceed that way. With general, we'll get a 4-hour debate. The select file, we'll get a 2-hour debate. And then in the final reading, if there is debate on final reading, it's a 1 hour max on that. So, but that's the process. And once again, many bills do not get out of the executive committee, and in all probability, many don't really need to see the floor of the legislature. It might be something that needs to be discussed in some area, but probably not the purview of the legislature to weigh in on. Not every bill requires the legislature to enact in law or modify a previous law. Not everyone rises to that level, if I can put it that way.
So it's kind of interesting to see how many bills you guys go through. 700 in a year. That's a and if you figure 20, if each city senator gets 20 bills to enters, that's 980 bills potentially you could be looking at every year. That's a lot of work and not a lot of time to do it.
It's kind of funny. So senators will come up and say, "Do you support this bill?" And we have a vote count card with all our names listed on it, and whether you're yes, no, or leaning one way or the other, and you'll have a senator come up and say, "Well, how do you feel about my my dog catching bill? What's the number on it?" I'll have to get back to you. I don't even know the number of my own bill because there's so many. And what I like to do, I ask those questions prior to making a commitment, even if I have, even if they explain what the bill is. I put it down. I take a look at the bill. I research the bill, and on the sessions when we're in a floor session, we get our agenda. We know the bills we're going to go through that day. Generally, there's floor debate, sometimes extensive floor debate. I go down through the bills and I look at the bill. I look at the statement of intent of the bill. I go through the bill, unless it's a 150-page bill, but and get a refresh my memory, refresh my understanding of what the bill actually stands for and what we're trying to accomplish. So that's a lot of times if I'm on camera or something and I got my laptop up in front of me, I'm just researching a bill, or I'm looking at maybe some research that pertains to that bill, and because it's impossible to remember even the numbers on my. I have a notepad in front of me right now. Okay, my Meals on Wheels bill. What number was that again? Well, yeah, that was 382, and I can remember 382 pretty well. But so many other bills, it's extremely difficult to remember the numbers on them. So
yeah. Now, how do you choose a priority bill? Because you got to do 20 bills per senator. At what point do you say this is my priority bill, or how does that process go?
You look at it, at least from my perspective, and being a freshman senator, only having 1 year behind me, and what the recommendation has been. We look at the bills we introduced. I only introduced 5 this year. Some freshman senators, I've had some very prominent senators that have been term limited out, that have told me, I didn't introduce any bills my first year. Be that as it may, some go in and hit the ground running, and they introduce 10, 15, 20 bills. What you look at, the type of bill it is, the probability of it getting passed, the importance of the bill. As far as you generally try to prioritize and rank your own bills with regard to most important, perhaps what the most immediate need might be in the district and perhaps in the state. I designated my LB 382, my Meals on Wheels bill, as my priority this year, and was fortunate to get that passed. But it's different for every senator, and so there may be bills that senators have championed for the last 2 or 3 or 5 or 6 years, in many cases, a bill will get passed, and the senator will say, "Well, I've been trying to get that passed for 6 years," and so that's been a priority for them. It's important to them. It's important to the people in their district, and so that's why that becomes a priority for them. And with a little luck, it gets passed. So.
Yeah. And since we're talking about Meals on Wheels, tell us a little bit about what that bill was and how it ended up getting through.
That bill was brought to me, the Agency on Aging, which provides funding, some of the funding for Meals on Wheels. Came to our office. We were asked if we would consider carrying it. I said absolutely after having a look at it. Meals on Wheels, the meal program on the Area on Aging was running about $4 million in deficit right now. Given the inflationary pressures we've all felt, given on our food, fuel, things of that nature, the amount reimbursed for the Meals on Wheels program to the Area on Agency through the Department of Health and Human Services has stayed fairly static, and costs have gone up exponentially. So the outcome of that is a number of senior meal programs in our Nebraska communities. Some have had to close, about 20 have had to close. Mm-hmm. And the Meals on Wheels program itself specifically, which you do have to qualify for economically, people that have been receiving Meals on Wheels have been put on waiting lists and no longer receiving them. So given the $4 million deficit, the proposal was through the Medicaid Managed Excess Profit Fund, we would provide $2 million this year, the fiscal 25-26, and $2 million 26-27 to try to at least get the program up to even. Mm-hmm. And so that bill, I had people from, let's just say, both sides of the aisles as co-sponsors on that. Feeding the elderly and taking care of our most vulnerable people is tremendously important to the people in the state of Nebraska. We got through general. We had some challenges. We had an amendment tacked on another bill that failed just ahead of mine in order to leave at a decent time out of session. The compromise was reached that was attached to mine as an amendment, which I didn't care for. I had no say in the matter. But eventually things got separated. Each of those bills got decided on their own, and Meals on Wheels did pass in the final analysis. So
now, what got attached to it?
There was a Senator McKinney had a bill, LB 48, that dealt with some SNAP benefits, and actually it wasn't SNAP benefits. I'll take that back. It was dealing with youth programs in a metropolitan community, which Omaha is the only one that qualifies, and it's to keep challenged youth out of our juvenile detention. It tries to keep the kids in some of the challenged communities out of jail and out of prison, out of trouble. I am not opposed to something like that, but it had failed previously just before my bill was considered. There's about 24, 25 community programs, non-governmental community programs, that are already providing that assistance in the communities that Senator McKinney was primarily concerned about. And so it failed, and there was quite a price tag on it. He had modified it. He had reduced the program. It was going to be a 5-year pilot program. It was going to end up costing about $20 million over the course of 5 years. We were quite challenged economically in the state this last year, certainly budget-wise, and so in an effort to get out, it was the last day of the week. It was the last 2 bills considered in the session. My bill was essentially a slam dunk with 40 plus people that, in fact, everyone could sign on to it. But when my bill was introduced, it essentially was being filibustered, and all the majority of the people that were on the mic wanted to just talk about how terrible we were because we did not advance Senator McKinney's bill. And so, speaking, had a discussion with Speaker Arch and a number of other senators. Would I be willing to allow it to be attached to my bill? And I said I was not in favor of that. I felt the bill should stand on its own, as his stood on its own. But in an effort to get out of Lincoln, Nebraska on the last day of the legislative week, it got attached. And so in the process, it did get sufficient votes to get attached as an amendment to my bill. I tried to separate them. I filed an amendment to my bill, a white paper amendment, which essentially replaces the original bill. And so 382 had LB 48 and 382. His actually was listed before mine as part of 382. It was LB 48. And so anyway, I had filed an amendment to a white paper amendment to be considered on select that would simply be my bill and would eliminate his. And he had priority amendments that take precedence over any other amendments on a bill, which gums up the system, and it's just part of the rules process. And I'm rambling on here about this, but eventually we came to an agreement. He dropped his priorities, and we did get the bill separated. They each had their own consideration. His bill eventually did pass, and it was modified from what his original package was, but it did pass, and as did mine. So, when we look at Meals on Wheels, costs run about between $9 and $10 for a senior meal at a senior center. Meals on Wheels run between $13 and $14, and the volunteers that deliver those are not reimbursed for any of their time or any of their gas or anything. That's a donation. Mm-hmm. And so the reimbursement from the state is about $5, and so obviously quite a discrepancy between $9.50 for a meal and what the $5 that's coming from the state to the Agency on Aging. Individuals can voluntarily donate for the meals when they get a meal, a maximum of $5. Not everyone can afford that. Not everyone can do that, and so eventually, through just the natural inflationary pressures and things of that nature that we've had, those costs have gone a great deal up, and we're not compensating sufficiently. Mm-hmm. I would hope. Hope's not a plan. But looking forward, being on Health and Human Services, my expectation are that we will be able to find sufficient funds to properly fund this for our seniors and those most vulnerable in our community. And that's one of the focuses I have on Health and Human Services. I want accountability of every dollar that's being spent, certainly in every agency in the state, but Health and Human Services especially. And we need to reprioritize where the money goes and put the dollars we have available to their best use, and so that is a priority of mine. Yeah,
I know one of the big things that has been discussed is property taxes in the state, and the property tax system in the state is I don't know if I can use the proper adjective on this without getting myself into trouble, but I guess to call the property tax system a joke would not be an insult. That would be a pretty accurate assessment, I think.
A bad joke.
A bad joke, yes, exactly.
Yes.
I know that you and a lot of other senators who ran the last election, that was one of the priorities that was on your stated list of things you wanted to accomplish or wanted to attack. How do you feel about what did the legislature do? Did they make any inroads toward getting that solved?
This session we did not do a great deal. There was one bill, LB 70, was morphed out of LB 69 that dealt with getting rid of about 18 sales tax exemptions that over a fiscal year would have added roughly $100 million of revenue coming into the state. I liked everything about the bill except the fact that from a technical standpoint is raising taxes. I'm not for raising taxes. I liked everything about getting rid of those sales tax exemptions to generate income, but it does not deal with property taxes. It's property tax relief. It's property tax reimbursement or something you recognize on your taxes. It's part of the fund for that. And until we deal with property taxes at the level that they're levied and paid as part of a combination of coming up how we generate revenue in the state of Nebraska, I'm hard pressed to support something like that. We struggled this last legislative session with simply coming up with balancing a budget. And we had a number of things that were thrown at us. The FMAP, which is a federal program, a federal calculation of the money that comes from the federal government to the states for Medicaid. That's weighted on a system. It's weighted on a 3-year average system. Nebraska is doing better economically, which is the basis for making the determination on the FMAP. We're doing better economically than some of the other states, so we actually had a reduction in the federal participation in our Medicaid dollars. That coupled with right at budget time, the economic forecast, there's 9 people on an economic forecast board. They came out with a very negative outlook on projected revenue, and so we had to come up with essentially about $500 million in that neighborhood of resources of how we're going to balance the budget. So,
and you're required to balance the budget.
We're required. Thank God we're required.
Yeah, no kidding.
That is one of the blessings in the state of Nebraska. We're required to balance the budget. You know, we have to do that in our personal life. Certainly at the state level, it's doubly important. The day after the session ended, which was June 2nd, my phone blew up, and we have a group chat system, and it's been going nonstop ever since. And the primary focus is what do we do with property taxes, because that has got to be job one in our next legislative session. And so, kicking around a lot of ideas. Certainly, TIOSA. We did on LB 303, which was Senator Jana Hughes' bill, established an 18-member commission that's going to take a look at the school funding formula. There'll be business people, farmers, ranchers, certainly educational people, 3 non-voting members of the legislature, and they will be taking a look at school funding and how we can better manage that. There's 244 schools in the state of Nebraska, and only about 40 or 41 are going to get any state equalization aid this year. That was not the intent when the TIOSA was established. It was to provide some state funding as part of an equalization process for all the schools, or as many as possible. But the substantial increase in property values have put many districts in a position where, as their property values have gone up, the school districts are required for local effort resources, LER, local effort resources, and many of the schools in my district get absolutely no equalization. Everyone gets $1,500 per student of foundation aid, but many of my schools get absolutely no state equalization aid based on the formulas as it exists today. So.
If my memory is correct on this, and it may actually be, but I think South Sioux is the only school district that gets equalization aid in your district. And I know Wayne doesn't, and I don't think Laurel does either.
Wayne does not. Pender does not. Wakefield doesn't. Wakefield actually gets about 1.1 million.
Okay.
Emerson does not, and I have those numbers. I get them from in fact, I have some of them here in my briefcase. But South Sioux City gets a substantial amount of money in equalization. Winnebago, Macy, Walt Hill, they get substantial amounts of equalization aid, and it's based on a number of factors. Certainly, poverty is one of those factors. English as a second language, and so there's a whole list of things. But if you're in a position with sufficient resources for the local effort resources for the number of students you have, you're probably not going to qualify for any state equalization money. Governor Pillen has proposed very recently that the state be responsible for all the school funding in the state, with the exception of buildings and bond issue type things for buildings and those types of things. I'm reluctant to see us go to that. We may have to, but I'm just concerned it's going to take the local control away from our local school boards and our communities, and so we'll have to see how that shakes out. But the state is is providing a fair amount of funding already at the school level. It's just not. It's from an equalization standpoint, it doesn't appear to be equal. I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
How does that sound?
Now, as I remember, when the casinos were approved a few years ago, I think part of that revenue is supposed to go toward property tax relief and toward I think schools were a part of that too, weren't
schools
they?
Schools are the small percentages go back. Go back that way.
Do you think that now we don't have South Sioux City is just now building their horse track, their casino is going to start construction next year. We probably won't see that till 27. Once everything gets settled in as far as all the casinos being built and getting established and getting a foot on the ground, do you think we'll see enough revenue from that that gaming to help out with that?
It's going to help. It's all that's is helpful, but it's not the answer. It's not the whole answer. And so Epic has been proposed. Getting rid of our property taxes and our inheritance taxes and our state sales tax. As a package, but going with an EPIC, which essentially is a consumption tax. It is a state sales tax. We've got well over 100 exemptions for sales tax in the state, and so the proposal initially with EPIC was to do away with sales tax exemptions and generate our income simply from what we consume. I don't believe the governor thinks it's a regressive tax. I believe it is, but that doesn't disqualify us from perhaps trying to look at some form of that. LB 170 actually was something along those lines, because we were getting rid of some sales tax exemptions. So if we are going to get rid of property taxes as our primary source of funding, certainly for our schools and for our counties, that may have to be part of the equation, that we get rid of some sales tax exemptions. And
then that's kind of tough, because everybody who's got one of those exemptions wants to say, well, you can take that one, but not mine.
That's it, exactly. And when I was campaigning for the general election, I addressed a number of groups, and that was one of the first questions I would ask whatever group I was before. I would say, all right, in order for us to find true property tax reform, property tax relief, we're going to have to make some hard choices. And people in this room, and there was an independent business group in Lincoln, Nebraska, 43, 44, 45 members, very diversified, from the cattlemen to engineers and everything in between, medical professions. I said, if we find a solution, there's going to be winners and losers in this room, and please help me minimize any negativity that a change in our tax laws would provide, and help me enhance the positives. And there may be some positives. We always talk about unintended consequences as being a negative thing, but quite frankly, sometimes there's unintended consequences of the law being passed or a rule being passed that are positive. And so, but we all have to have skin in the game if we're going to come up with a solution. Getting everybody on board to have skin in the game is going to be the trick. And in all probability, if we end up coming up with a solution for the property tax problem that we face here in the state of Nebraska, if we make everybody in the state mad with what we do, we're probably on the right track. we might very well be on the right track. If we make only part of them happy and part of them sad, we're probably not doing our job.
Yeah.
We probably have failed. So
Yeah.
I hate that. That's a terrible analogy, but I think it might be very true when we get said and done.
Exactly. So we're talking with Glenn Meyer, the state senator for District 17 here in Nebraska, which includes Dakota County, along with Thurston, Wayne, and a little bit of Dixon County as well, here on the Dakota County Star podcast. Glenn, we're really out of time. There's so much we could talk about that first year in the legislature. I know there were a lot of bills that you were involved with, and I know we've got some time until the next session, so maybe we can have you back again to talk a little bit more about what's been going on and what's to come with the legislature. It's been great having you on this time, though.
Hey, I appreciate the time. I'd be more than happy to come back anytime. I got a little long-winded on LB 382. I apologize for that. My wife
priority bill. So
my wife tells me all the time, cut it short. She's, get the hook. Glenn's talking again, but no, I would welcome the opportunity to come back and at any opportunity and talk about the legislative session and some of the things we're working on. But I can tell folks listening that we are going to be very focused on property tax relief and school funding and how we get there. I'm not sure how we're going to get there, but it's a journey we have to take, and it's the solutions we have to find. That's all there is to it.
Definitely. I know it's something that has been talked about for a long time, and it just seems like the can keeps getting kicked down the road for another session or whatever. But I think there's enough. From what I've been hearing, not just from you, but from other state senators who've talked about it, this is an issue that's definitely got to be at the front of the agenda next year, and hopefully it will be.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thanks a lot for coming in this week and talking with us, and we'll have you on again here sometime down the road.
Well, thanks, Mike, and I really enjoyed it. So
all right.
Thank you very much.
All right, we're going to take a time out here on the Dakota County Star podcast and tell you about what's coming up in this week's edition when we come back here on the Dakota County Star podcast. Back to the podcast in just a moment, but first I want to tell you about Maricela Morales. She's your local Aflac bilingual benefits advisor, and she can help your small business provide benefits to your employees at no cost to your business. If you want more information, give her a call at 712-259-6580, and she can get you all the details. There's no obligation, and she can answer all your questions. So give Maricela Morales a call at 712-259-6580, your Aflac bilingual benefits advisor in Dakota Dunes, South Dakota. All right, we're back here on the Dakota County Star podcast, and thanks again to Senator Glenn Meyer for stopping by this week and chatting with us here on the program. We have had a lot to talk about that we really wanted to get to, but there's so much that we needed to go over this time around, and weren't able to get everything talked about this time, so we're going to have him on again here somewhere down the road and talk more about stuff that went on during this legislative session, some of the things that will be on tap for the 2026 session. So we'll have him on again later, but good to have him on this week. As far as this week's edition of the Dakota County Star, it's out on the newsstands now. You can pick it up at your favorite location. And a lot of news to talk about, a lot of local news going on in the paper this week. As always is, we are Dakota County's official newspaper. We are your only newspaper here in Dakota County, and the only newspaper in the area that covers Dakota County as much as we do. Leading off this week, the future of movies at Devil Park, the soccer complex there along the river there in South Sioux City, was on the docket. City Councilman Ben Schultz was asked about why one of the youth baseball organizations that was raising funds for a trip to state tournament this week, why they were being charged rent for running a movie out there on the movie wall out at the soccer complex, and some nice discussion about that was in the paper this week. Also, pictured longtime police officers Brian Van Berkom and Dave Heineman were recognized at the council meeting for 25 years of service to the community. Both of them recognized by Chief Ed Mahon during the meeting there on Monday evening. South Sioux City Chamber has a new addition to its staff. His name is Omar Samaniego. He is on staff there, and he is helping out with the chamber as their membership coordinator, and also he's kind of their bilingual specialist. He will be able to speak with people in the Hispanic community, and as well as with people in the English-speaking community, and he's going to be helping out with the chamber there. So congratulations to him, and welcome on board. Also, kind of an interesting story that fell in our lap earlier this week. Michael White, if the name's familiar to you, if you're a South Sioux City resident, he is a 1988 South Sioux City graduate, and he is the film professor at Wayne State College, and he is in the process of making a feature film called The Painter, which is set in World War I, and he needed a historical place to shoot some of the interior scenes of the movie. And what better place than the O'Connor house out there by Homer? So he's been out there. He and his group are out there this past week doing some shooting on that. They wrap things up Tuesday, and that movie's going to be out sometime this fall. So I'll be anxious to see how that goes. School board meeting Monday night. They approved a slight increase in the price of meals for students. The increases will be for elementary and middle school and high school students. For lunches, breakfast for middle school and high school will go up a little bit as well. Elementary breakfast will still be free. Costs for those will be subsidized by the school district. Also in this week's paper, some columns from Senator Meyer and also U.S. Senator Pete Ricketts, and yours truly, of course, with a little discussion about political trash talk and how it's already getting started, and we're still a good year and a half away from the next election. On the back page of the front section, some news on a firefighter from South Sioux City who was injured during a house fire last week. Also, the lady who was involved in a murder, being an accessory to a murder, was sentenced in Dakota County District Court last week as well. And some other news on the back page there as well. The second section, the sports section, we have a new wrestling coach at South Sioux City High School. His name is Lucas Bonham. He was a longtime teacher and coach here in the district, and he'll be taking on the duties as the head boys wrestling coach during the 2025-26 school year. Also, some information on our youth baseball teams competing in state competition. And I thought with this All-Star Week, baseball All-Star Week going on this week, I thought it'd be kind of neat to talk about baseball cards. And I have a lot of memories of card collecting when I was a little boy, and share some of those in my From the Bleachers column this week as well. News coming in from Emerson and Homer and Dakota City and Hubbard and Jackson. Everybody checking in this week with information and some other stories in the paper as well, and a big chunk of legal news in this week's paper. So keep up on how your tax dollars are being spent here in Dakota County. And we close things out this week with our Spotlight on Area Community Events, our monthly page there. And this week we are highlighting the July Homes of the Month as chosen by the South Sioux City Chamberettes. So all that in this week's edition of the Dakota County Star, available on newsstands. And you can also subscribe. Give us a call at 402-494-4264, and Lori can get you going on the subscriptions there. As far as what's on my mind this week, not really a whole lot. We're kind of in the middle of summer. We're getting into that dog days time of year where the baseball and summer sports seasons are starting to wind down. County fairs are coming up. We got the Thurston County Fair coming up 2 weeks from now here in Dakota County. So it's just we're kind of getting in a summertime groove here, and looking forward to the start of the school year. It's kind of hard to believe that the school year is pretty much a month away. I think the first classes start in the middle of August, so we're getting down to the end of the summer already. I can remember when I was a little boy, and it seemed like summer couldn't get there fast enough, and it ended way too quick. And we had a lot longer summers then than kids do today. And we would get out of school around Memorial Day, and we wouldn't have to go back to school till usually the Thursday before Labor Day, and then we had a 4-day vacation, and then it was really about mid-September before we really were getting into a groove with school again. And now today, the kids seem to get out earlier. They start earlier. They have a lot more days off than we used to have when I was a kid. It's a different setup today. Whether it's better or not, I guess it's your decision. I guess whether you think it is or not. But summertime is a little different, and it's been a lot of fun around here this summer. We've been doing a lot of things at the paper here to kind of improve the quality of the product. We've got a promotion coming up with our Furry Friends promotion, which if you haven't gotten your pet involved in this yet, now's the time to do it. In fact, we've got until next week to get your pet picture and information in for our Furry Friends promotion. We're going to have a neat little setup there with some pictures of our favorite furry friends. Of course, the the staff's security director, Noodles, will be a part of that as well. And so get your pet in the paper here. We're looking forward to getting that rolling here toward the end of the month. Well, let's see. I'm looking at the rest of my desk, and everything else here is stuff that I probably better not talk about because it's just boring stuff, really. Paying bills and going through paperwork and stuff like that. So we're going to close it down for this week's edition of the Dakota County Star Podcast. Thanks again to Senator Glenn Meyer for chatting with us here on this week's edition. We'll have another edition of the podcast coming up next week right here on DACOStar.com, Dakota County's home for news and information since 1909. Have yourselves a good week, and we'll see you next week with another edition of the Dakota County Star Podcast.